Professor Hanno Friedrich here from the KLU. You are one of the guys behind this great event. We've seen you yesterday evening already with the introduction to the event. I think it's the third time, right, that KLU is doing this Startup Day, is it?
Yes, it's a third time. We started 3 years ago with the idea where we wanted to invite startups, and we saw that there's a lot of startups out there, and then we said, well, let's invite them for the lecture, and then there were several of them, and we said it would be better to have it one day so that we have several startups and students coming together. And then we had 10 in the first year, and then we had 20 in the second year, and this year we have 40, so obviously it seems to grow exponentially. Right?
Okay.
So
that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's we are somehow running short a little bit on like the capacities, right? To put like 300 people in here is a challenge. But we will see how we handle it next year, right?
Okay, let's wait and see. What's the purpose behind it? I mean, bringing together the industry with the startups, bringing together your students with the startups, or all of it?
Yeah. So the initial purpose was to discuss trends in the market. So my lecture is on transport and distribution. So we started from teaching. So the purpose was somehow to learn about the market and the development that's going on in the market, and to have a content discussion on the new business models and how it would develop. Then I was very opportunistic and like went around in the university to check who else could be interested in that. And then of course the startups are interested to recruit our students. So this was a match. And then we had also people from the outside. I had friends and companies that said, well, this would be interesting to look at too. Mm-hmm. So we also invited some companies for that. So there's different purposes coming together suddenly. But it started, and it is actually, the main purpose is to bring together the students with the startups and to discuss the market with the startups and together with the students, so that they give the opportunity to them.
You just mentioned the trends. I mean, from your point of view, what are the big trends at the moment in the industry, and also the trends that are discussed today?
Oh, I should have prepared for that question, right? Well, I think trends. It's hard to talk about these trends because everyone has this one way you can say, well, there's digitalization, there's sustainability, I always like to talk about regulation as well. Well,
okay, that's interesting.
That's my topic, because like since we have scarcity of resources in terms of infrastructure, in terms of sustainability, there will be a lot of more regulation. There's already a lot of regulation in the market, but there will be more of that, and this will also be a game changer for a lot of all the logistic markets, I think. So this is, if you talk about trends, this would probably be one that was not mentioned here yet, right? We talked a lot about digitalization, sustainability, not enough. We should probably also talk about what comes in terms of regulation. How will the governments react that we don't meet our CO2 targets, for example, right? There could be extreme actions coming from governments, right?
Do you see any startups targeting these kind of problems, like regulation, like climate change regulation, emissions regulation, all these kind of things?
Well, I think when we listen to the startups, there's many startups that mention this, right? We had, for example, CargoNext that mentioned when you address the cost issue, you will also address the CO2 issue to an extent, because you avoid empty loadings. So this is for sure a side effect to some extent. I'm not so sure if there would be like
a market for it,
more extreme disruptions. For example, what happens when we start electrifying the highway, right?
Yeah.
Well, there is things there, but I think there's still things to think about. It is very unsure, so I don't also know if this would be a startup that would invest now in that, right? Or if it's too early, because you cannot really see yet where the way is going.
I mean, you mentioned we have 40 startups today here,
Yeah.
and we have them in various fields of the industry, from trucking to sea freight to e-commerce and the cab players and all these different parts of the industry. If you look back the 3 years now, has that kind of changed? Has that broadened? Are there more fields where startups are really going into?
Yeah, well, so we had from the beginning, we had trucking startups, right? This was there from the beginning. I would have tend to say, well, warehousing is probably something where there's newer startups coming up
Yeah.
with Sharehouse that we would see
Yeah.
this afternoon. But like in warehousing, there were startups around for a long time. Like Magazzino is quite old already,
Yeah.
and also Gray Orange
Yeah.
that we will have here
Yeah.
is quite old. So probably this would be wrong to say. Like autonomous cars and vehicles probably now come up that we have Einride this afternoon. So I think this is probably a newer trend. The platforms we had, right? The platforms we had even like in 2000 already, where we had like the development of the German like Timocom and these guys. So this is not new, but nowadays they take over the business and become digital forwarders.
Yeah.
So this is new, but this was already 3 years ago, right? That when we had Freight Hub starting with that and CargoNext, for example, right?
Maybe one last question. Can you take something for your own research out of this event? I mean, do you get some new insights for your research where you really think, wow, I have to look into this kind of spot?
Also, good question, because that's what we were thinking. Perhaps for next year would be interesting to really push a little bit more to filter out the research questions that are behind the startups, right? So what we're talking here a lot is markets and how they position in the market. And now with research, if you would use research, then this is also a way of differentiating, right? When we have machine learning or neural networks, when you hear these expressions, if this would really be done in startups, this would be a way how to differentiate really from the others, right? And this, but it's really tough to talk about these things, but this is a really deep content.
Yeah.
So now the question was, what do I take out for my research?
Yeah.
So I'm working in freight transport modeling and freight transport prognosis. So it's very important to have an overview what kind of new players are there and like how freight transport the actors behave in this market. So in this way, I get a good overview. Like for my methodologies, I didn't succeed yet to find a startup that would use my model, the way what I develop, because what I develop is already like freight transport demand models, and the natural customer for that is a ministry, right?
Okay.
So,
yeah, but let's wait and see. Maybe it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can look forward to next year already, but before we do that, I think we will enjoy the afternoon session. So Hanno, thanks a lot for being here on our blue couch.
Pleasure.
Thank you.